First Contact and Misconceptions. The Vexari warship Stormcleaver emerged from hyperspace on the outskirts of Earth's solar system, its obsidian hull gleaming under the distant sun. Commander Zixthar stood on the bridge, his four arms crossed over his armored chest, golden eyes narrowed as he gazed at the blue-green planet on the main view screen. "Pitiful," he growled, mandibles clicking in disdain. "Another primitive world ripe for conquest. Prepare the intimidation protocols." His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Nixara, nodded and began inputting commands into the ship's communication array. The Vexari had conquered hundreds of worlds across the galaxy, their superior technology and warrior culture allowing them to subdue any resistance with ease. Earth would be no different, or so they thought. As the Stormcleaver entered Earth's orbit, Zixthar expected the usual panic and chaos that accompanied their arrival. Instead, the planet's communications channels erupted with an entirely unexpected cacophony of reactions. "Dude, check out that spaceship," exclaimed a teenager in Tokyo, live-streaming the alien vessel to millions of viewers worldwide. "It looks like something straight out of a mecha anime." In New York City, street vendors were already setting up shop, hawking "I survived the alien invasion" t-shirts and "Probe Me First" hats to eager tourists and locals alike. Nixara's antennae twitched in confusion as she monitored the planet's broadcasts. "Commander, I'm not detecting any signs of mass panic or military mobilization. In fact, it appears that many humans are celebrating our arrival." Zixthar's exoskeleton bristled with irritation. This was not how conquests were supposed to go. He cleared his throat and activated the ship's external speakers, his voice booming across the planet's atmosphere. "Attention, inhabitants of Earth. We are the Vexari, conquerors of 1,000 worlds. Surrender now, and we may spare your lives as our servants. Resist and face utter annihilation." There was a moment of silence, and then, "Yo, alien dudes." The response came from a radio station in Nebraska, where a sleep-deprived DG named Chuck had just finished his graveyard shift. "That's like a super aggressive opening line. Have you considered anger management classes? I know a great therapist who specializes in interspecies conflict resolution." Zixthar's mandibles clacked in disbelief. "Are they mocking us?" Nixara shrugged, a gesture she had picked up from observing other species. "It appears so, Commander. Perhaps a demonstration of our power is in order." With a nod from Zixthar, the Stormcleaver's weapons systems powered up. A brilliant beam of energy lanced out, striking Earth's moon and shattering a small crater into its surface. "Behold the might of the Vexari," Zixthar bellowed. "This is but a fraction of our power. Surrender now, or your entire planet will suffer the same fate." The response was not what they expected. In Cape Canaveral, a team of NASA scientists burst into excited chatter. "Did you see that?" exclaimed Dr. Emily Chen, astrophysicist extraordinaire. "The energy output of that weapon is incredible. Think of the applications for clean energy if we could harness that technology." Meanwhile, in a small pub in Dublin, a group of friends watching the events unfold on TV clinked their glasses together. "To the moon," one of them shouted. "May it rest in pieces." Zixthar's golden eyes widened in shock. "Why aren't they afraid? We just destroyed part of their moon." Nixara, who had been diving deep into human cultural databases, offered a tentative explanation. "Commander, it seems that humans have a long history of imagining and even hoping for extraterrestrial contact. They've produced countless stories and simulations of alien invasions. In a way, they've been preparing for this moment for centuries." As if to prove her point, the ship's sensors detected a massive gathering forming in Times Square. Thousands of humans were assembling, many dressed in outlandish costumes representing various alien species from their popular culture. They held signs with messages ranging from "Welcome to Earth" to "Take me to your leader, but buy me dinner first." Zixthar slumped into his command chair, feeling a headache forming beneath his armored carapace. This was so far outside of standard invasion protocols that he didn't know how to proceed. Perhaps, Nixera suggested gently, we should attempt direct communication with their leaders. Before Zixthar could respond, a transmission crackled through the ship's communication system. The face that appeared on the screen was that of Dr. Amelia Rodriguez, the recently appointed United Nations Ambassador for Extraterrestrial Affairs. "Greetings, visitors from the stars," she said, her voice calm and diplomatic. "On behalf of the people of Earth, I welcome you to our humble planet. We are a curious species, eager to learn and exchange knowledge. While we don't appreciate threats to our world, we're willing to overlook your enthusiastic introduction in the spirit of fostering peaceful relations." Zixthar blinked, momentarily at a loss for words. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that responded to threats with offers of diplomacy and thinly veiled sass. You do realize we're here to conquer your world, yes?" He finally managed to sputter. Dr. Rodriguez smiled, a glint of mischief in her eyes. "Oh, we gathered as much. But you see, we humans have a saying. Come at me, bro. It means we welcome challenges. In fact, we thrive on them. So if you're here to test us, to see if we're worthy, well, bring it on." As Zixthar struggled to formulate a response, Nixera leaned in and whispered, "Commander, I've been analyzing their global communications. It seems that in the face of our threat, the humans have not only remained calm, but have begun unprecedented cooperation. Nations that were previously at odds are now working together to present a unified front. Indeed, all across the globe, ancient rivalries were being set aside. Scientists from every country were pooling their knowledge, military strategists were coordinating global defense plans, and civilians were organizing grassroots movements to welcome, or if necessary, resist, their new alien visitors. Zixthar felt a strange sensation in his chest, something he hadn't experienced in eons of conquest. Doubt. These humans, with their strange mix of humor, curiosity, and seeming fearlessness in the face of annihilation, were unlike any species the Vexeri had encountered before. "Very well, Ambassador Rodriguez," Zixthar said, drawing himself up to his full, imposing height. "If it's a challenge you want, it's a challenge you'll get. We, the Vexari, hereby issue a formal series of trials to your species. Should you succeed, we will acknowledge your right to exist freely. Should you fail..." He let the threat hang in the air. Dr. Rodriguez's smile never wavered. "We accept your challenge, Commander." "Zixthar," he provided, somewhat taken aback by her continued composure. "Commander Zixthar," she repeated. "We look forward to showing you what humanity is truly capable of. Oh, and one more thing." "Yes?" Zixthar asked, wary of what other surprises these humans might have in store. "We've taken the liberty of organizing a welcome parade in your honor. I do hope you'll attend. I hear the New York hot dogs are to die for." As the transmission ended, Zixthar turned to Nixera, his expression a mix of confusion, frustration, and the tiniest hint of admiration. "Sub-Commander," he said slowly, "I have a feeling this conquest is going to be very different from the others." Nixera nodded, her antennae twitching with what might have been excitement. "Indeed, Commander. It seems the real challenge may not be conquering these humans, but understanding them," Zixthar finished, his gaze returning to the vibrant blue planet below. For the first time in his long career as a conqueror, Zixthar felt a spark of something new, curiosity. The invasion of Earth had begun, but not in any way the Vexeri could have anticipated. As the Stormcleaver hung in orbit, its crew watching the bizarre spectacle unfolding below, one thing became clear: this would be a conquest unlike any other in the history of the galaxy. The challenge issued. As dawn broke over New York City, the streets were already buzzing with an energy unlike anything the world had seen before. The Vexeri ship Stormcleaver hovered above, its imposing silhouette a stark contrast to the colorful parade floats assembled below. Commander Zixthar stood at the base of his ship's gravity lift, his four arms twitching nervously. He'd faced down armadas and conquered entire systems, but nothing had prepared him for this, a welcoming committee. "Remember," Sub-Commander Nyxera whispered, "no matter what happens, we must maintain our warrior dignity." Zixthar nodded grimly and stepped onto Earth soil for the first time. He was immediately assaulted by a cacophony of sights, sounds, and smells that threatened to overwhelm his senses. "Welcome to Earth," boomed a voice over loudspeakers. A portly man in a suit that seemed 2 sizes too small waddled up to Zixthar, hand outstretched. "I'm Mayor Thompson. We've prepared a little shindig to mark this historic occasion." Zixthar stared at the offered hand, unsure of the protocol. After an awkward moment, he grasped it with one of his lower arms. "We are not here for shindig," he growled. "We are here to challenge your species." The mayor's smile never faltered. "Oh, we know. But who says we can't have a little fun while we're at it? Now, how do you feel about hot dogs?" Before Zixthar could respond, he was whisked away into a whirlwind tour of human culture. He sampled street food, finding hot dogs surprisingly palatable, watched street performers. Juggling seemed a pointless but oddly mesmerizing skill, and was even coaxed into taking a selfie with a group of enthusiastic teenagers. Meanwhile, in the United Nations headquarters, Dr. Amelia Rodriguez was hard at work. The chamber was filled with delegates from every nation, all eyes fixed on the large screen where the Vexari ship loomed. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dr. Rodriguez began, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation, "we stand at a crossroads in human history. The Vexari have issued us a challenge, one that will determine the fate of our planet. But I say this is more than just a test. It's an opportunity." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Dr. Rodriguez continued, "For too long, we've been divided by borders, ideologies, and petty squabbles. Now, faced with an external threat, we have a chance to show the true strength of humanity, our unity." As she spoke, screens around the chamber lit up with incoming messages. Scientists from rival nations were already collaborating on analyzing Vexari technology. Military strategists from countries that had been on the brink of war mere days ago were now sharing intelligence and resources. "The Vexari think they're testing us," Dr. Rodriguez said, a smile playing on her lips. "But in reality, they're giving us the push we've needed to come together as one species." Back on the streets of New York, Zixthar was reaching his limit. He'd been patient, he'd been diplomatic, by Vexari standards, at least. But enough was enough. With a roar that silenced the crowd, he activated his armor's built-in loudspeaker. "People of Earth," his voice boomed, "we appreciate your hospitality. But the time has come to begin our challenge. We will test your species in 3 trials. Should you fail even one, your planet will be forfeit." The crowd fell silent, all eyes on the alien commander. Then, from somewhere in the back, a voice shouted, "Bring it on, Spiky." Zixthar's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Very well. Your first challenge will test your physical endurance and adaptability. In 3 days' time, we will unleash a swarm of our combat drones across your planet. These drones will simulate an invasion force. Your task is simple: survive for 24 hours. He paused, expecting gasps of horror or pleas for mercy. Instead, he heard cheering. "Woohoo! Real-life battle royale," someone in the crowd shouted. "I knew those years of playing Alien Invasion Simulator 3000 would pay off," yelled another. Zixthar turned to Nyxera, confusion evident in his golden eyes. "Are they excited about this?" Nyxera, who had been diligently studying human culture, offered an explanation. "It seems, Commander, the humans have a long history of simulating combat scenarios for entertainment. They call them video games. This challenge appears to align with those experiences." As news of the first challenge spread across the globe, humanity's response was swift and surprising. Instead of panic, there was a surge of determined preparation. Gamers began organizing massive online strategy sessions. Parkour enthusiasts offered free classes in urban evasion techniques. Even couch potatoes got in on the action, with one viral video showing a man demonstrating 15 ways to turn your lazy boy into a fortress. In Silicon Valley, tech companies raced to develop apps that could track and predict drone movements. In India, a team of engineers worked around the clock to retrofit old cell phones into makeshift EMP devices, and in a small town in Brazil, a group of grandmothers formed the Abuela Resistance, armed with rolling pins and an unshakable determination to protect their families. Dr. Rodriguez, watching these developments from the UN headquarters, couldn't help but smile. "You see," she said to her colleagues, "this is humanity at its finest. Faced with a challenge, we don't cower, we innovate." As the day of the first trial approached, a palpable excitement mixed with tension filled the air. Zixthar, observing from the storm cleaver, found himself both puzzled and, though he'd never admit it, impressed by the human spirit. "Commander," Nix Era reported, "our scans indicate that the humans have made significant preparations for our drone swarm. They've established a global communication network, developed countermeasures we hadn't anticipated. And, sir, is that a group of humans practicing something called parkour on the rooftops?" Zixthar watched the feeds with growing amazement. These humans, with their fragile bodies and primitive technology, were preparing to face a force that had brought entire civilizations to their knees. And they were doing it with a mix of determination and, strangely enough, enthusiasm. As the countdown to the first trial ticked away, Zixthar found himself faced with an unfamiliar feeling: uncertainty. For the first time in his long career as a conqueror, he wasn't sure of the outcome. The night before the trial, as cities around the world buzzed with last-minute preparations, Dr. Rodriguez addressed the global population. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice broadcast to every corner of the planet, "tomorrow, we face our first trial. The Vexari believe they are testing our physical prowess, our ability to survive. But we know the truth. They are testing our spirit, our ingenuity, and our unity." She paused, her eyes shining with fierce determination. "For too long, we've been divided. But now, faced with this challenge, I see a humanity united. From the scientists working tirelessly on defense systems to the ordinary citizens opening their homes to strangers in need of shelter. This is who we truly are. The Vexari may have advanced technology and superior physical strength, but we have something they don't understand, something they can't quantify: the indomitable human spirit. Tomorrow, when those drones fill our skies, remember this: every one of us is part of the human family. We stand together, we fight together, and we will survive together." As her words echoed across the globe, people cheered, embraced, and steeled themselves for the challenge ahead. In homes, in shelters, in hastily constructed bunkers, humans from all walks of life prepared to face the alien threat. And high above, in the cold silence of space, Commander Zixthar watched. For the first time since arriving at this strange blue planet, a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. These humans, with their odd mix of fragility and ferocity, of individuality and unity, were unlike anything he had encountered in his centuries of conquest. As the final hours ticked away, one thought echoed through both human and Vexari minds: tomorrow would change everything. The first trial was about to begin, and with it, a new chapter in the history of both species. The stage was set, the players were ready, and the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would unfold when humanity faced its greatest challenge yet: ingenuity unleashed. The first rays of sunlight had barely touched the horizon when the sky erupted into chaos. Thousands of Vexari drones, sleek and deadly, poured from the Stormcleaver's hangars, their metallic bodies glinting ominously in the dawn light. Commander Zixthar stood on the bridge, his golden eyes fixed on the viewscreens showing scenes from around the globe. "Now, humans," he muttered, "show us what you're truly made of." As the drones descended upon cities, towns, and rural areas alike, humanity's response was swift and surprising. In New York, Parker enthusiasts led groups of civilians in daring acrobatic escapes across rooftops. In Tokyo, a network of high-tech safe houses, hidden behind holographic projections of mundane storefronts, opened their doors to those seeking shelter. But it was in the realm of technology that humans truly shone. In Bangalore, a team of programmers led by 19-year-old prodigy Anika Patel had worked through the night to finalize a global drone tracking app. As the invasion began, smartphones around the world lit up with real-time updates on drone movements and safe zones. "It's like Pokemon Go, but with aliens," one user exclaimed, dodging a drone while keeping his eyes glued to his phone. In a small town in Germany, retired engineer Heinrich Schmidt had repurposed old radio equipment into a network of signal jammers. As drones approached, they suddenly found their navigation systems scrambled, causing them to veer off course or crash into each other. Meanwhile, in the Australian outback, a group of indigenous trackers partnered with environmental scientists to create natural camouflage techniques. Using a mixture of local plants and mud, they helped entire communities blend seamlessly into the landscape, becoming invisible to the drone sensors. As the hours ticked by, Zixthar found himself leaning closer to the screens, his mandibles clicking in disbelief. "How?" he demanded. "How are they evading our most advanced tracking systems?" Nick Serra, who had been analyzing the human responses, offered an explanation. "It appears, Commander, that the humans are utilizing a combination of high-tech solutions and what they call thinking outside the box. Their adaptability is remarkable." Indeed, all across the globe, humans were showcasing an ingenuity that defied the Vexari's expectations. In Brazil, a carnival designer had repurposed parade floats into mobile fortresses, their colorful exteriors hiding reinforced interiors that could withstand drone attacks. In Canada, iced hockey players used their sticks to bat drones out of the sky, turning defense into a sport. But it wasn't just about survival. In a move that left the Vexari baffled, humans began attempting to capture and repurpose the drones. In Silicon Valley, tech giants offered substantial bounties for intact drone components, leading to a frenzied drone fishing craze. As the 12-hour mark approached, Dr. Amelia Rodriguez addressed the world from a secure bunker, her face streamed to devices globally. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "We are halfway through this first trial, and I am in awe of what we have accomplished. Not only are we surviving, but we are thriving in the face of this challenge." She paused, a proud smile lighting up her face. "But let us not forget, this is more than just a test of our ability to evade drones. It is a test of our humanity. I've seen reports of strangers risking their lives to save others, of communities coming together to protect their most vulnerable members. This, more than any technology or strategy, is what makes us truly strong." Her words resonated across the planet, reinvigorating those who were tiring and inspiring those who had begun to lose hope. As the final hours of the trial approached, humanity's spirit seemed to burn brighter than ever. In a particularly memorable moment, a group of children in a Rio de Janeiro favela managed to reprogram a captured drone, using it to deliver medical supplies to isolated communities. On the Storm Cleaver, Zixthar watched all of this with a mix of frustration and growing respect. These humans, with their soft bodies and primitive technology, were not just surviving his challenge. They were turning it into an opportunity for growth and innovation. "Commander," Nick's era reported as the final minutes ticked away, "preliminary data suggests that human survival rates are far exceeding our projections. In fact, in some areas, they've managed to neutralize up to 60% of our drone force." Zixthar's exoskeleton bristled with a mix of emotions he couldn't quite name. "How is this possible? They're barely a spacefaring species. It appears, Sir," Nick's era said carefully, "that we may have underestimated them. Their strength seems to lie not in advanced technology or physical prowess, but in their adaptability and their connections to one another. As the 24-hour mark hit, a cheer went up around the world. Humans emerged from hiding places, hugging strangers and celebrating in the streets. The drones, their programming complete, retreated to the Stormcleaver. In the aftermath, the true extent of humanity's achievement became clear. Not only had they survived, but they had done so with minimal casualties. More impressively, they had advanced their own technology by leaps and bounds, reverse engineering Vexari tech and incorporating it into their own devices. Dr. Rodriguez, looking tired but triumphant, once again addressed the world. "We have passed the first trial," she announced, her voice filled with pride. "But more than that, we have shown the universe what humanity is truly capable of. We faced a challenge that should have been impossible, and we not only survived, we grew stronger." On the Stormcleaver, Zixthar stood in silence, watching the celebrations unfold on the view screens. For the first time in his long life of conquest, he felt a flicker of doubt. These humans, with their bizarre mix of fragility and resilience, of individuality and unity, were unlike anything he had encountered before. "Nexera," he said finally, his voice uncharacteristically subdued, "prepare the second trial. It seems we may need to reevaluate our approach." As news of humanity's success spread across the galaxy, other species watched with growing interest. The humans, it seemed, were full of surprises, and as the Vexari prepared their next challenge, one thing became clear. This contest was no longer just about conquest. It had become a test of understanding, of bridging the gap between two vastly different species. The first trial was over, but the true challenge was just beginning. As both humans and Vexari prepared for what was to come, the universe held its breath, waiting to see what this strange, resilient species from the third planet of an unremarkable star would do next. The final trial. The aftermath of the first trial left both humanity and the Vexari in a state of introspection. As Earth celebrated its victory, Commander Zixthar and his crew found themselves grappling with a concept foreign to their conquest-driven culture: respect for an adversary. 2 weeks had passed since the drone challenge, and the planet buzzed with anticipation for the next trial. In that time, humanity had not rested on its laurels. The technological leaps made during the first challenge had sparked a global renaissance of innovation. In a repurposed airplane hangar outside of Tokyo, Dr. Yuki Tanaka led a team of international scientists in reverse engineering the captured Vexari drones. "It's remarkable," she explained to a group of wide-eyed reporters. "Their tech is advanced, yes, but it's their approach to problem-solving that's truly alien. We're not just learning new technology, we're learning new ways of thinking." Meanwhile, in the bustling markets of Marrakesh, a new form of trade had emerged. Vexari-inspired products filled the stalls, from clothing mimicking the aliens' exoskeletons to children's toys shaped like the Stormcleaver. Humanity, it seemed, had not lost its sense of humor or its entrepreneurial spirit. Aboard the Stormcleaver, Commander Zixthar paced the bridge, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. "The second trial must be different," he muttered. "We cannot underestimate them again." Sub-Commander Nixara, who had been poring over data from the first challenge, looked up. "Perhaps, sir, we've been approaching this all wrong. The human strength isn't in their technology or their physical abilities. It's in their unpredictability." Zixthar paused, his golden eyes narrowing. "Explain." "Well, sir," Nixara began, pulling up holographic displays of human responses to the drone invasion. "Look at how they adapted. They didn't just use brute force or hide. They turned our challenge into a game, a learning opportunity. They enjoyed it." The commander's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "So for the second trial, we test not their strength or their technology," Nixara finished, "but their ability to think in ways we cannot predict." As the Vexari finalized their plans, Earth held its breath. Dr. Amelia Rodriguez, now a global icon of human resilience, addressed the United Nations. "We've shown the Vexari, and ourselves, what we're capable of when united, she said, her voice carrying a mix of pride and caution. But we cannot become complacent. Whatever comes next, we must face it with the same spirit of innovation and cooperation that saw us through the first trial. Little did they know, the Vexari were about to challenge that spirit in ways no one could have anticipated. As the sun rose on the day of the second trial, the Stormcleaver's massive holographic projectors flickered to life, casting an image visible from every corner of the globe. Commander Zixthar's imposing figure loomed over the planet. "Humans," his voice boomed, "you have surprised us with your resilience and ingenuity. Now we shall test the true extent of your problem-solving abilities." The image shifted, showing a massive, complex structure floating in Earth's orbit. It resembled a giant, multidimensional puzzle box, its surfaces covered in shifting patterns and pulsing with energy. "This is the Nexus," Zixthar explained, "a cosmic conundrum of our own design. Your task is simple: solve it within 48 hours. Fail, and your planet will be forfeit." As the transmission ended, stunned silence fell across the globe, quickly followed by a flurry of activity. In every major city, scientists, mathematicians, and puzzle enthusiasts gathered to analyze the Nexus. Supercomputers whirred to life, crunching data at unprecedented speeds. But as the hours ticked by, it became clear that this was no ordinary puzzle. The Nexus seemed to defy the laws of physics as humans understood them. Each attempt to solve one aspect caused others to shift unpredictably. In a bustling command center in Geneva, Dr. Rodriguez watched with growing concern as the world's brightest minds hit wall after wall. "We're approaching this all wrong," she muttered, running a hand through her disheveled hair. Beside her, a young intern named Mohammed looked up from his tablet. "Dr. Rodriguez," he said hesitantly, "I've been thinking. What if the solution isn't in solving the puzzle at all?" Amelia turned, her eyes narrowing. "Go on." Mohammed swallowed hard but continued. "Well, the Vexari said to solve it, but they never specified what that meant. What if we're supposed to think, well, like humans?" A slow smile spread across Amelia's face. "Mohammed, I think you might be onto something. Get me a line to every research center, now." As Amelia shared Mohammed's insight, a new approach began to take shape. Instead of trying to solve the Nexus through traditional means, humanity began to look at it from every unconventional angle they could imagine. In India, a group of classical musicians began analyzing the puzzle's shifting patterns as if they were musical notations. In Brazil, a team of graffiti artists projected the Nexus onto buildings, using street art techniques to find hidden patterns. Children were brought in to play with virtual representations of the Nexus, their uninhibited imaginations spotting connections adults had missed. In Japan, a sushi chef's approach to arranging his ingredients led to a breakthrough in understanding the puzzle's spatial relationships. As the deadline approached, humanity's efforts culminated in a global collaborative effort unlike anything seen before. Social media platforms were repurposed into massive brainstorming sessions. Virtual reality environments allowed people from around the world to manipulate 3D models of the Nexus together. With just hours to spare, Dr. Rodriguez stood before a panel of screens, each showing a different team's progress. "We've approached this from every angle," she said, her voice tired but determined. "Now it's time to bring it all together." In a daring move, they decided not to solve the Nexus, but to communicate with it. Using a combination of mathematics, music, art, and pure human intuition, they sent a signal to the cosmic puzzle. To everyone's amazement, the Nexus responded. Its patterns began to shift in harmony with Earth's transmissions, creating a breathtaking display of cosmic art visible from the planet's surface. As the 48-hour mark hit, the Nexus didn't deactivate or dissolve. It transformed. The once imposing structure rearranged itself into a beautiful, abstract representation of Earth, a monument to human creativity and cooperation. On the Stormcleaver, Commander Zixthar watched in stunned silence. They didn't solve it," he said, his voice a mix of confusion and awe. "No, sir," Nyxera replied, her antennae twitching with excitement. "They did something far more impressive. They communicated with it. They befriended it." As celebrations erupted across Earth, the Vexari found themselves facing an uncomfortable truth. These humans, with their irrational approaches and unpredictable solutions, had not just passed their test. They had fundamentally changed the nature of the challenge itself. The second trial was over, but its implications were only beginning to unfold. As both species prepared for the final challenge, one thing was clear. The contest between Vexari and humanity had evolved into something neither side could have predicted. A journey of mutual discovery and understanding. A new understanding. The aftermath of the Nexus challenge left both humanity and the Vexari in a state of profound contemplation. Earth was riding high on its second victory, but there was an undercurrent of tension. What could the final trial possibly entail? Aboard the Stormcleaver, Commander Zixthar stood motionless before the ship's vast observation window, his golden eyes fixed on the blue planet below. For the first time in his long career as a conqueror, he felt uncertain. "Commander," Nyxera's voice broke the silence. "The crew awaits your decision on the final trial." Zixthar turned slowly, his exoskeleton shifting with a soft click. "Tell me, Nyxera," he said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "In all our conquests, have we ever encountered a species like this?" Nyxera's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "No, sir. The humans are unique. Their solutions defy our logic, yet they're undeniably effective." "Indeed," Zixthar mused. Perhaps it's time we approached this differently." On Earth, preparations for the final trial were in full swing. Every nation, every community was contributing in its own way. In the streets of Rio de Janeiro, samba schools rehearsed dances that told the story of humanity's trials. In the kitchens of Osaka, chefs prepared foods inspired by Vexari biology, hoping to bridge cultures through cuisine. Dr. Amelia Rodriguez, now a symbol of human resilience, addressed a global audience from the UN headquarters. "Whatever the Vexari throw at us next," she declared, her eyes shining with determination, "we will face it together, with all the creativity, courage, and compassion that define us as humans." As her words echoed across the planet, the sky lit up with the now familiar glow of the Stormcleaver's holographic projectors. Commander Zixthar's imposing figure appeared, looming over every major city. "Humans of Earth," his voice boomed, carrying a note that none had heard before. "Respect. You have faced our challenges with a spirit that I have never encountered in all our travels across the cosmos." A murmur rippled through the watching crowds. Was this the prelude to the final, most difficult trial? "Your solutions to our tests have not just surprised us," Zixthar continued. "They have challenged our understanding of intelligence, of problem-solving, of life itself." He paused, and for a moment, the entire planet held its breath. "And so, for the final trial, we ask of you one last thing." Zixthar's mandibles clicked, almost nervously. "Teach us." A stunned silence fell across the globe, quickly followed by a buzz of confusion. In the UN chamber, Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward, her brow furrowed. "Teach you?" she asked cautiously. Zixthar nodded. "For eons, we Vexari have conquered, believing our way to be supreme. But you, with your irrational methods and unpredictable solutions, have shown us that there is more than one path to greatness." The commander's form shimmered, and suddenly he appeared life-sized, standing before the UN assembly. It was a gesture of vulnerability that shocked even his own crew. "Our final challenge to you is this. Show us your humanity, not through tests or trials, but through understanding. We offer in exchange our technology and knowledge of the cosmos for your art, your music, your philosophy, your way of seeing the universe." As Zixthar's words sank in, a wave of emotion swept across the planet. This wasn't a trial to be overcome, but an invitation to connect, to bridge the gap between two vastly different species. Over the next weeks, Earth transformed into a hub of interstellar cultural exchange. Vexeri scientists walked wide-eyed through human art galleries, trying to comprehend the emotion captured in brushstrokes. Human musicians collaborated with Vexeri sound engineers, creating harmonies that resonated across species barriers. In universities around the world, human and Vexeri philosophers engaged in debates that lasted days, grappling with questions of consciousness, morality, and the nature of existence itself. But it wasn't just high culture that fascinated the Vexeri. They found themselves captivated by the small, everyday aspects of human life. A Vexeri engineer spent hours watching a group of children play hopscotch, marveling at the simple joy of the game. Another became obsessed with human cuisine, particularly developing a fondness for spicy Thai food, much to the amusement of local chefs. As the exchange deepened, both species found their perspectives shifting. Humans, with access to Vexeri technology, made leaps in clean energy production and space exploration. The Vexeri, influenced by human creativity, began to approach problem-solving in new, innovative ways. 1 month into this unprecedented exchange, Commander Zixthar once again stood before the UN Assembly. But this time, he was not a conqueror issuing a challenge. He was a leader extending a hand in friendship. "People of Earth," he began, his voice carrying a warmth that would have been unimaginable weeks ago. "You have passed our final trial with a grace and generosity that has humbled us. You have taught us that true strength lies not in conquest, but in connection." Dr. Rodriguez, standing beside him, smiled. "And you, Commander, have taught us that even in the vastness of space, we are not alone. That different as we may be, understanding is always possible." Zixthar nodded, his golden eyes scanning the assembly. "And so, on behalf of the Vexeri, I extend an invitation, not to join our empire as a conquered world, but to join us as equals in the galactic community." The chamber erupted in cheers, a sentiment echoed around the globe, and up to the stormcleaver hovering above. It was a moment that would be remembered for generations, the day Earth took its place among the stars. As celebrations continued around the world, Zixthar and Dr. Rodriguez stood on the balcony of the UN building, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues. "You know," Amelia said, a hint of mischief in her voice, "for a race of intergalactic conquerors, you Vexeri turned out to be pretty decent folks." Zixthar's mandibles clicked in what Amelia had learned was the Vexeri equivalent of a chuckle. "And you humans," he replied, "for a bunch of soft-skinned, irrational beings, are far wiser than we ever imagined." As night fell, the stars came out, twinkling with new promise. Somewhere up there, other civilizations were going about their lives, unaware that the balance of the galaxy had just shifted. Humanity and the Vexeri, once poised for conflict, now stood united, ready to face whatever the cosmos might throw at them next. It was the dawn of a new era, not just for Earth or the Vexeri, but for all sentient life. An era where understanding trumped conquest, where diversity was strength, and where the greatest adventures were those undertaken together. As Zixthar had learned, sometimes the greatest victory wasn't in winning a challenge, but in finding a new way to play the game.